Hello?
Hello.
Hi. I was trying to get in. I couldn't I couldn't get in. I guess the host still hasn't arrived. Hmm. Let me check why host still isn't in. If you guys can just hold on for a little bit.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for 3 Ways to Build AI. Jamie Nunez, your presenter, will be here in just a minute.
Micro session 2 was starting, so if you want to slide
Right,
over
thank
to
you.
that one. Some other synergy people. I know it's two, even though you're doing the same thing, it's a different session. But if anyone else still has questions from here, they can also go to micro session 2 for synergy.
It's like from one to another, right? This is great. David, thank you for coming to my next session. You're wonderful. Is this the actual last session before everybody goes to sleep or is done, or is there one more? Anybody know?
This is the
That's
last.
how it looks. There's a closing session.
Got it. Okay. All right, let's get started on this. And I want to make sure that you you all have the tools necessary to do that. If you were in my other session, you will not see any similarities, but I will sort of follow some similar guidelines. But the idea here is to make sure that we get started. All right, let me tell you who I am and let me tell you kind of what we're about to do. My name is Jamie Nunez and I am the Western Regional Manager at Common Sense. What I do is I support educators like yourself, state agency officials to talk about the policies and lessons that might help kids learn best online using tools. So we cover digital citizenship, but there's a number of other areas that we cover. What we're going to do is I'm going to attempt to figure out how to use artificial intelligence in a way that actually helps to build digital agency skills. So this isn't a session on how to use AI. This is a session on how AI and digital overall well-being can go hand in hand to make sure that you are using these tools very effectively. Does that sound good? If you were like, why did you do this? And I see Devorah, you look so stylish on the call, Devorah, really great to see you. She's here with us and I guess we'll get started. In addition to that, Cecilia was my intern. Before, Cecilia, you want to quickly say who you are for the next folks that didn't get a chance to meet you in our last session?
Can someone check on Steve's session and?
Thank you, Jamie. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cecilia. I am the Education Outreach Intern with Common Sense Media, and I was a former SFUSD student from pre-K to 12th grade. So I'm super happy to be here, and I just want to thank you all for all the hard work that you do.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, let's get started as a whole on that, and we'll roll with that. I also want to quickly shout out Devorah. Devorah is from the DOT. She has been instrumental in anything and everything related to digital agency. So kudos to you, Devorah. If you were in the last session, I just gave you a big shout out. So.
Oh, thanks, Jamie. I hope you guys enjoy your session. And if you have any questions ever, just email me. I'm available.
You're amazing. All right, here's the deck for our session, and let's just get started. All right, here's some 3 solid ways you can do that. If you, again, really quickly, haven't signed in, I presume everybody has done this at this point. If you haven't done that, please go to slide 2. And oops, I'm not going to sign in, you all are. If you, give me 1 second, one more time. If you also are interested in getting paid, there is the information for that. By all means, feel free to click on any of those links. All right, so as I mentioned just a second ago in the other session, when we talk about digital agency, we talk about someone that can actually use technology responsibly to learn, create, and participate. These are core dispositions or skills, as we refer to them at Common Sense, and in order to develop skills necessary to combat or to do these things, right? So making sure that you're slowing down and self-reflecting before you type anything in, making sure that you're always considering the perspective of others or the tools that you're using, so on and so forth. We also noted from our last session that the landscape of our artificial intelligence is, as you all know, changing very rapidly. But we at Common Sense did a report back a number of months ago now, and we polled a number of families to assess whether or not they understood what was in front of them. And so you can kind of start to see from our surveys why this is really relevant and important at this point. Back in May, over 60% of students had already used ChatGPT, and then 51% of them were thinking schools should actually limit these platforms until safeguards can actually be put in place. I do want to make sure that as I share the next slides that you all consider what guidelines, both ethical and also school policies that you have in place around the usage of some of these tools. But here are 3 ways in which you can do this. The first is making sure that you already create, again, the rules and guidelines necessary to use these tools. The second is to make sure that you're using these tools to streamline tasks. And then the third is inviting your families in to explore tools as a whole. And we'll just kind of get started from that. Number one, if I were you in your shoes this week and I were thinking about using AI, the first thing I would do is ask myself, what is it that our kids need to do to understand the actual landscape? And what we've done for you is given you some very specific lessons in order to do that. So if you are a elementary school teacher on the call and you are thinking about using AI with your students, what I'd first do is not do that at all. And instead think about what altercation and what manipulation of images or text even looks like, right? So this is a lesson that we have a common sense about why people alter digital photos and videos. And it's a really great segue into talking about manipulation of images, manipulation of text in this particular space. Now, if you're in middle school on the call and you're thinking, Jamie, I'm really just concerned with my kids not using the tool appropriately, then I might, if I were in your shoes, consider taking this 15-minute lesson to think about ethical dilemmas related to AI tools, right? So this is actually having students talk about the ethics behind using tools like ChatGPT. Again, this is a very quick 15-minute lesson that you can incorporate if you are a middle school teacher. Even if you're a high school teacher, this is a really great way. And then the final piece, as I mentioned in the other class, this is a wonderful, wonderful tool to talk about the actual implications and the civic engagements that students should actually have. So let's actually create a tool that might help to reinforce critical thinking skills and to use technology wisely. And again, this is a preface to what you then want to do in using these tools. And that is sort of to create guidelines and to create kind of a foundational understanding of this. Does this make sense, everyone? I'm going fairly quickly because I want to get into the actual work, but critical and core to develop those sort of like foundational understandings of the tool. All right, and then I think I shared this in the last session, but this is a really great way to handle AI. And generally, if you are struggling as a school community to figure out what specific guidelines are there for your school, you may want to share this with your administrator or consider using it. All right, so here's what we're going to do. And here's the sort of the steps that you want to do. The first thing that I would do after I created the lessons with my students is I want to create some foundational understanding on how to use it. So we're going to try this. And if you have ChatGPT, then great. If you don't have any access to it, then that's also great. But the first slide that I'm sharing with you here are resources or actual agreements that another school district and a bunch of educators from this school district use to develop their tech agreements for their classrooms. Now, what we're going to do is attempt to do that same thing, but we are going to use to build those guidance using sort of ChatGPT. And so here's what we're going to do first. On the left, I'm going to now show you and model for you how I would then develop these core guidelines with my students. And then what I would do once ChatGPT spit out this content, how I would then transfer it into an actual document. You all with me? Let me see your face because I'm like, did I lose you like 12 minutes ago? Great. Okay, Walter, I see your face, even though it's not a face on camera. I like what I'm seeing. It's very stylish. So right on. All right, so let's get this started. So let me, I'm going to share my screen now. And this is what I am, give me 1 second. And if you're not aware of kind of how to use ChatGPT or you haven't used it, or again, I'm happy to give you those tools. But what you want to always consider is context, specificity, and you want to consider role playing as much as you can. And so I attempted very briefly, again, you will see this in action here. The activity that we're doing is developing a core document that helps us establish guidelines on how to use AI in our classroom. So the first thing I want to ask it is, I'm role playing or hypothetically coming up with someone. Imagine you are an elementary teacher of elementary students. I want to be specific in terms of my action word that I'm using. So that I use the word create. And then it's clearly going to spit out 10 out of 10 times horrible data. Sorry, that's like my bias here. After it spits it out, then I want to start the conversation. So ideally, you are never wanting to do the first iteration of anything on ChatGPT. You want to do the third, fourth, fifth. But the idea here is I want to now have this conversation. So can you make it kid friendly? It spit out this kid friendly is horrible. I said, but offer more specific guidelines. So I'm now tinkering for someone that may be in 7th grade. So I'm starting to tinker after the first iteration of it. And then it came up with something and I want to then fine tune it from there, right? So it came up with absolutely here are the guidelines. And okay, it's cute. I mean, thanks ChatGPT, like you're a jerk. Like I wouldn't want to have a drink with you at a bar, but it's an okay experience, right? So, or it's an okay kind of like content. What I'm now going to do, let me pause it just because I just shared out a lot. Let me review it one more time. Context, specificity, and action words is the 3 sort of core mantras that I use when I use tools like these tools. And then never use the first iteration and potentially go 2, 3, 4th iterations of the responses until you get what you want. Is that helpful, everybody? Sorry to be that teacher, but I want to be as specific as I can. So then what I'm going to do is I'm then going to create, where are you? I'm now going to create on Canva, and what I've given you again is a copy of this so you can have that. Let me add that onto the chat. It's again on the slide. And now what I've done is I've given you a template here, right? And this template here is I'm going to now, you can make a copy of this and you can now switch off this particular space into RAI sort of norms, right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to now just find it, and I'm not going to copy and paste from ChatGPT, but I am going to sort of think about what it's saying, right? AI is like a tool, like a super smart computer. Use it for learning and exploring cool stuff. That means nothing to me, right? So what I'm trying to say is, where are you? Use tool to create something and have fun, right? Whatever you sort of want to do. But again, what has resulted from this is that you now have a prompt and you now have a document that you can sit behind and make a copy of in order to create your AI tool agreement. Does this make sense, everyone? Any questions on this? Any thoughts to this? Very rudimentary, but why is this important? Because if you start to use this and only use verbal kind of agreements or engagements, you will lose your students very, very quickly. And I could give you hundreds of examples from what we've taught thus far to engage with that. Any thoughts on how they might sort of incorporate a different prompt on ChatGPT? All right, because it's late, I won't be that jerk that just randomly calls people. So, all right, let me now move into the next phase, which is you've given yourself agreements, guidelines. Now we want to say, I want to use ChatGPT to simplify my task as an educator. And there is so much, there's just way too much. The space is like the Wild West in terms of devices. So the preceding slides, I've by design been really intentional about not selling them, not naming them, but considering 3 factors. My first guideline is privacy. I never want to jeopardize and compromise my students' privacy. 2 is the last time I heard educators are not millionaires. So I want a tool that is accessible and potentially even free to use. And 3 is I need a tool to be as specific as they can to my teaching engagement. And so what I'm going to share with that is 3 tools in mind. Does this make sense? The first is a tool called Firefly. How many folks are familiar with Firefly? If you're not familiar with that, this is a way for you to be more productive in when you have meetings with others. It's a wonderful way to summarize emails and documents. And again, I'm not paid by Firefly. These are just tools that have helped me quite a number of ways as I worked with teachers. This is an extension that could potentially help. Again, I've linked up on the site here, but this is a wonderful tool to use AI to feel more productive in your meetings. The second is Brisk. The Brisk AI is a writing tool that helps you to write curriculum. It also does a wonderful job of converting reading levels. And it's great to generate feedback. So if you're constantly giving feedback, if you're an English teacher on the call and you want to use your voice to give generative feedback to students, This is a wonderful tool to play off of. Again, I want to be mindful of what I just shared, which is these tools have a number of glitches to them. They're constantly iterating, but this is a wonderful way to detect engagement with your students. And the biggest thing that Brisk AI, Brisk Teaching does is it actually helps to detect AI writing in Google Docs. So I know that there's sites like Turnitin, but those cost money. You can use Brisk to as a supplement or as a replacement, I should say, to Turnitin to help to detect whether or not the student is using AI in his or her own writing. Make sense? And then the last one, I think there's two others. There's ChatGPT Sidebar. This has been around for a little while, but this is a wonderful tool to make reading more accessible. So if you have newcomer students or you want to summarize web pages, this is a great tool to do that. The great thing I like about this tool is it enables you to have supplemental reading material. So if you like a certain site, it will recommend other sites that have similar content in them. So, all right, enough, Jamie. The last thing I'll have is some of you just hate writing and composing emails. There's so many of these tools. I just kind of created one that had my criteria. Compose AI is a wonderful way to both automate your calendar and as professionals, help to streamline email replies if that's of an interest to you. All right, you all, let me just stop talking and then have you on the deck, just play with it. Like just take a moment now to just turn your camera off, drink some water and use time to just play with these tools. And then we will reconvene in the next 2 minutes. Now, let me share the document one more time with you. So you have access to that for folks that are jumping on now. And Cecilia, I've been told you sing really well a cappella as people are concentrating. So did you want to hum as people are doing? I'm just playing with you.
How did you know?
Jamie, I'm sorry to interrupt. While we do this, I'm trying to find the title to complete the session feedback, and your title does not appear in here. If you could just take a look and see if there's another name you're under. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joseph. I appreciate you. Let me look that up. And you gotta tell me a little bit as I'm a little bit the session feedback. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. There's a drop down, general DDD feedback.
I see that now.
The closest I could find was HS teaching AI literacy, integrating multidisciplinary resources about AI.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I guess, yeah, maybe I just don't even need any feedback. Who knows, Joe? Unfortunately, I guess they just didn't do it. So I'll have to defer to your, I don't know how to answer that because I think that's a district experience. And
I just thought it was connected to our pay for being here today. So,
oh, right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad. They left teachers off of the middle school redesign feedback for their big meetings. So.
Thanks for pointing that out, Joe. Yeah. We'll spend maybe another 30 seconds, y'all, just because I want to make sure that we close the session out on time and even before that. All right, let's reconvene. So I respect your time. First, is there any questions? Clearly, that is not enough time to explore something, but hopefully you've been able to get them on your tabs. Is there any question specifically about either the tabs or the approach that that we are suggesting, or any just sort of general thoughts that you might have with respect to how to build these tools into your space?
Can you send, okay, okay, I guess we can, send the slide to us?
Oh, you got it, Grace. I'll send it one more time for you. It's on the chat right now. If you click on that link, you will see, you'll get access to each of
Okay,
the experiences there, yeah.
great. So it's the docs, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
slideshow there. Thank you
Great.
for asking though.
Sure.
Mhm. Catherine, question you had is about maybe incorporating, could you say again the three words you used to narrow down what, oh yeah, of course. Every time I look for a prompt on ChatGPT, I'm looking at the following: context. What exactly are you trying to say? What's the context? Imagine I'm this teacher, role play this particular experience. So you want to give it context. The second thing I often want to do, and these go hand in hand, is you want to have an action word, and that is create, design, develop, whatever those action sort of verbs are that you want to help to develop. And then the third thing you want to do is be as specific as you can. And specificity comes from iterations. That's the way the model is built. So you can speak generally at first if you're just openly asking, but then you want to engage with the tool itself to then mention it, fine tune the words that you're using. And that's typically what I found to be successful. I hope that helps. And I'll add it on to the chat as well. Thanks, Margaret, for the BRISC that, and thank you for naming that. Let me quickly put that on the chat as well. It is called BRISC Teaching, and again, all these tools are free to use, but I will add that onto the slide now for that, so you have that connection. Give me 1 second while I am double. All right, any other questions or any other ways that I might be able to help before we close the session out? Yeah, I'm probably that jerk that starts to name all these things, and then Dan and folks from the DOT would be like, Jamie, why did you have all these tools like shared out? But yes, Elise, it is an account, but it also, I believe, gives you access as an educator. So, and if for whatever reason you have to pay for it, reach out to me and I will help you pay for it for the year. So.
Do you have an email address that if we need to reach out to you in the future?
Of course, yeah. That's like my close away takeaway line. It's just so like, and if you need me, use one of these experiences, but please use my email address if I can help you develop these experiences. All right, I'm going to just close though with this, and then I'll let you all be on your way. This is probably the most important thing that I'll say, and this is sort of the three ways that you help. Attempt to use AI to engage your families, and this is one of the hardest parts that I'm seeing with our students, in that as we think about equity issues and as we think about how our kids are navigating these tools, they're a little, I don't want to say misinformed because I want to be cognizant of my words, but they certainly need some leveling. Families and communities sort of need leveling in terms of how to use some of these tools. And so what I would encourage you to do is to think about how you and your correspondence with families use these AI tools in order to provide prompts for families to then use as a resource, right? And these things can include things from if you have a difficult homework assignment, you can iterate the assignment on these tools. If you have language barriers, you think at home, how families can translate your content or your assignment in a particular tool. We've given you kind of a guide to how ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence tools can potentially be helpful for parents. I encourage you to look at that as a things that you can do in the classroom. But with that, I'll just stop sharing and give you 6 minutes back of your time. So I'll stay on for the next 4 or so minutes if you need my help. But in the meantime, there is a feedback session, apparently without my title. So pick another one if you'd like, and I'll let the folks know. But please reach out to me if I can be of assistance, or if you just need someone in your life to have a thought process with as you use these tools. Let me put that down one more time. And I'm very accessible, meaning despite my busy schedule, like we all have, I just as a former teacher and an admin, like I get off on having connections and collaborations with teachers. So please use me, consider collaborating with me if I can help out.
I have a question. I don't know if it's really related completely to the AI, but
Of course.
virtual reality software, does Common Sense look at any, make any recommendations?
As you're typing, I'm giving you this. On the chat, I added a link. We rate and review a number of tools, and I've just typed in for you AR and VR games that are applicable for learning. You can take a look at that list, and we have a comprehensive sort of list. Again, we're not paid by any of these companies. We just sort of relate to them. So take a stab at that, Joseph, if you want, and I can certainly put you in touch with someone else on our team, Bianca, that can help you with specific tools. So. And Cecilia, I'm such a jerk. I didn't include your commentary. Would you like to share any thoughts before folks are closing, or would you just like to smile in a nonverbal way to affirm people's
I
presence?
have a question. Is this available in only English or in Spanish too?
What is that, Ms. Campos?
That tool that you have, the one that you have.
We do the ChatGPT that for parents. I believe you can translate that into Spanish.
Mhm.
The other tools, I would need to double check the other lessons and the resources that I shared. But the tools for parents are available in Spanish. That's correct.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much. That's a wonderful question.
Hi, I have a question about students and adults with clumsy fingers that click things, post things, even if after they have reflected a lot. And are there any advice about that? Any guidelines?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And I think, well, two things come up for me. One is if something is repeated, if someone has a really hard time, that impulsivity sort of gives in, then I might encourage to have a conversation about how to repair something. One is something is accidentally posted or shared, like what to do in this case. I can certainly give you a lesson from that, from Common Sense, but I would reinforce that. And then with parents, oftentimes sharing with families a way if they have posted something without them thinking about it. Again, we all sometimes do this, but I might encourage small tips or some potential tips throughout the year in terms of how to engage in these experiences in a civic manner, right? The truth is, it's a really difficult kind of connection, right? Because if I'm frustrated, I want to sort of get out my expression, and get out my response. And then it's only after the fact that we've actually reflected on the fact that the context was all wrong or our emotions were high, that we then can't take certain things back. But I might attempt to have a much more empathetic sort of disposition when I talk to kids and families, and then only those repeated offenders actually kind of horrible. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use offenders because that's I just don't like that language. But I might encourage kids to reflect, to think about those experiences, and then provide pivots on what to do in those moments to build some of those skills.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. And again, Deborah, I will give you a lesson or an activity to share that, but that's a really good question. It's also a very complex question. So thanks for sharing that.
Thanks.
All right, you all, 3:51. I wish you a wonderful life. If there's anything else, by all means, just have a good year. Just know that this one person in this world is just applauding your efforts. So, and Cecilia may be the second one, yeah. But thank you all very much, and I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Again, if you want to stay on to ask any other questions, by all means do that. Otherwise, enjoy your last session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question for you. I don't know if you'll know anything about this, but I work in transition services. We do a lot of resumes with youth, among other things, and they struggle with those a lot with the language and the weird requirements. And someone had suggested using ChatGPT, and I was like, okay, I'll try it. And I just now like did it and was like, oh wow, it actually came up with like a really long list, but then it was like so wordy. Any hints or clues for like, how do we get something that's a little easier to work with, or how do we narrow down what we're looking for?
Yeah, Rachel, I'm going to give you the magic sauce right here. On the chat, I gave you a site called PlayLab. It basically is a way for you to create your own AI EdTech tool. What I would do is, I'm happy to work with you on the side if you like, but it's essentially what I would do is I'd create a resume building tool that has components of a resume built in. It's a very easy, it's like made for teachers. It's a really easy way to create your own AI tool specifically for the type of activity that you want to create in this case.
So combining like the format or the sort of cut and paste thing with that bit of
yeah.
AI.
And so here's the beauty of that tool. Again, I'll let you assess it for yourself, but you can import 4 or 5 really good examples of really good essays, and then use the tool to say, have students, you're a bot, and help students create an appropriate resume using these components. And here are the questions that you need to ask the student, right? And instead of you, Rachel, being of the support, the students can go in using your language and build their own resume tool that they can then copy and paste into that. Again, just an idea, but I would certainly use a tool like that. And it's very, very easy to use, and it's completely free. So
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, because it
Absolutely,
is
Rachel.
often us sitting there for a long time, and it's like pulling teeth to get the description out, where it's like this student knows exactly what they were doing.
yeah.
Describing it is really difficult for them.
And please holler if I can be of help. I'm always happy to kind of like model something for your students, or at least help you with the tool itself to sort of build that, the agency, that kind of like component into that might be helpful. So.
Okay. And then the questions would be like the questions that it would ask them, like, where
That's
were you?
correct.
When did you start? Okay. Got
Yeah,
it.
so the prompt would be, and again, sorry everybody on that, but prompt 1 would be identify, I wouldn't do personal information, but I would identify a description of what makes your skills, and then ask the bot to ask them, what are your top 3 skills? Here are some examples. And then when they generated that content, then the bot would then respond with like, here's some skills that might transfer from this word that you used, right? Just thinking about the prompts, I think would then be helpful to generate the types of responses. So
Yeah, that sounds great.
yeah,
Awesome.
Holler though,
Thank you
it's
so much.
again, it's really easy to use, but I want to be mindful that everybody's got different experiences. So just send me a message, and I'm happy to put you in touch with the person that created that, or help you to build the bot itself. So
Okay. I'll check it out. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate
Really
it.
appreciate it.
Mhm. Any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right, Sulu, have a
Yeah,
beautiful one.
bye-bye.
Okay.
Sorry for